I've travelled between Bristol, where I grew up, to London, where I live now, countless amount of times by car, but I've never really seen what's in between those two places. A few weeks ago, Temple Cycles got in contact with me and invited me to the Temple Traverse. 4 days, roughly 190 miles, riding from their store in London in Brick Lane all the way to White Ladies Road in Bristol, their new store is. For years now, I've thought it'd be really cool to ride from my current home in London to the house where my parents still live now, where I grew up in Weston-super-Mare, just outside of Bristol. But the marrying up those two places and doing that route takes a lot of work. So when they said that they wanted to do this and wanted me to come with them, I thought I would double up the experience and use it as my excuse to finally tick something off my bucket list, which is ride my bicycle home. Now, it wasn't easy. Bikes got broke, people got hurt, and questionable things happened at campsites. Yeah. couldn't hear that bit.
Yeah.
And 73 miles on day one on a fully loaded bike definitely had me questioning some of my life choices. But by the end of it, I think I grew as a cyclist, and I think I understood bikepacking a little bit differently. So this is part one of riding from London to Bristol with Temple Cycles.
We'd actually all met at Temple the night before for a bit of a briefing, so at least I recognised everyone's faces. Names were a different story. I'm absolutely terrible at names, and there were quite a lot of us. So I was generally slightly concerned I was going to spend the next 4 days getting names wrong, and ultimately making names up for people. But we had coffee, we got the bikes loaded up, and by about 8 o'clock, we were ready to leave Brick Lane. The start of the ride felt strangely normal for me. I live in East London, so these are roads I ride all the time. The only difference was that this time I wasn't coming home at the end of it. We had more than 70 miles ahead of us this day, and eventually, Bristol. But first, we had to get out of London. Crossing London Bridge was our first proper look at the Thames. We're going to see quite a lot of it over the course of the day, but the further we travelled, the more we're going to watch it change.
So tight.
No chance getting through there. No.
We went back and forward across the river, through Suffolk, London Eye, Vauxhall, Chelsea and Fulham. We then crossed back over the river at Putney and started making our way towards Richmond Park. And I think this was the first little glimpse of the next 4 days was actually going to be like. Richmond Park is obviously still London, but suddenly you've got open space, deer, trees and these beautiful roads to ride. It's not actually that far from me where I live, but because it's the complete opposite side of London, I pretty much never come here. After Richmond, we picked up the river again. And this is probably where the journey actually started for me. I wasn't riding through places I recognised anymore. We were following the river past boats, amazing houses and little bits of the Thames I'd never seen before. It's funny because I've travelled across this part of the country loads of times, but travelling through somewhere by bike completely changes it. You don't just go from London to Bristol. You see everything in between. At about 38 kilometres, we stopped at Little H at Molesey Lock for our first proper pit stop. A few more of the Temple team met us there, plus Luke, who was joining us for the ride from here. We had coffee, we had cake, more sun cream, and I attempted to film something interesting leaving the lock. It wasn't interesting. Moving on. For a while we carried on following the river and everything was lovely, until it wasn't. We eventually had to go through a fairly horrible road section around Thames. We'd all put our heads down a bit and we're just trying to get through it as quickly as we could and get back to the nice stuff. The psychopath kept crossing junctions, there were bollards everywhere, and unfortunately one of those bollards jumped directly in front of Ollie. His front rotor took basically the entire impact and was completely bent. We couldn't straighten it enough to use, so the solution was fairly simple. Rotor off, caliper cable tied, out of the way, and Ollie continued into Windsor with one brake. Our route then took us through Windsor Great Park, where we discovered that apparently you're not supposed to ride through in big groups. We didn't know that. We do now. By the time we got into Windsor, Ollie needed a bike shop. Luckily, they managed to find him a rotor in the parts bin and only charged him £10, which was probably the bargain of the trip. And he wasn't the only one. Reese had noticed his tyre was starting to bulge pretty badly, so while Ollie was getting a new rotor, Reese got a new tyre. Meanwhile, the rest of us did the important job: lunch. With everyone's bikes hopefully working again, we left Windsor and headed towards Maidenhead. And this section was brilliant. Loads of little bits of single track past Windsor race course and Dorney Lake. I think that's how you say it. And it felt like we were properly out on an adventure now. We lost a few people along the way, so we regrouped at a Lidl in Maidenhead. And obviously, being elite endurance athletes, we made the sensible nutritional decision: mini milks. The problem was, at this point I could feel myself getting dangerously close to a bonk. I'd been eating, I'd been drinking loads, but something wasn't quite working. So I made another excellent nutritional decision and had a Red Bull, which immediately started fighting me. From this point, I pretty much put my head down and concentrated on getting myself to Henley. Coming down towards Henley-on-Thames, we also encountered our first angry drivers of the trip. One van driver dropped a gear next to us and disappeared in a massive cloud of smoke. Then shortly after, someone else shouted something completely unrepeatable at us before accelerating past and immediately joining the queue of traffic. We rode past them and stopped at the pub, where I had possibly the best shandy I've ever had in my life. And while we sat enjoying our drinks, our angry friends very slowly drove past us again. Perfect. Henley felt like the home stretch. There was only about 10 miles left to the campsite. Unfortunately, whoever planned the route had apparently decided that the perfect place for the hardest climbing of the entire day was those final 10 miles. I'm not sure whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. On one hand, my legs were completely cooked. On the other, arriving at the campsite after climbing all the way up felt pretty bloody satisfying. We got the tents up and discovered a campsite had cold showers. Normally I'd probably complain about that, but after more than 70 miles on one of the hottest days of the year, it was absolutely glorious. Most people headed off to the pub for dinner. I decided to stay at camp, charge all my camera gear and eat some dried food out of a bag. It was fine. But we'd done it. Day 1 was the longest day of the entire trip. We left the bike shop and Brick Lane that morning and somehow ended up here. And more importantly, I think we stopped feeling like a collection of people who signed up to the same trip. We were starting to feel like a group. Day 2 started pretty early because everyone wanted to get down the road for breakfast. I'd already eaten my incredibly posh beans from Firepot. They were fine. And more importantly, I'd brought coffee beans and a grinder all the way from London, so I was bloody well going to use them. When we got to the cafe, I decided I actually wanted to keep moving. I'd been riding with a quicker group, so I knew they'd probably catch us up as soon as we got into the hills anyway. Reece, Steve, Mike and I headed off and pretty quickly found the start of our first proper climb of the day, right up into the Ridgeway. Luckily, at the bottom, we met some people doing a survey about local cycling infrastructure, which normally isn't the most exciting sentence in the world, except they had flapjacks and sweets and water. So at this particular moment, they were basically my favourite people in Britain. They refilled our bottles, gave us some food, and then we started climbing. The climb wasn't ridiculously steep, it just went on and on. But somewhere on the way up I realised I had a problem. I could get into the biggest cog, but the next couple of gears, basically the exact gears I wanted to use, were skipping. And it was getting worse. I was running a SRAM UDH derailleur, which basically has no adjustment apart from the tensioning cable. The idea is it goes on your frame and it just works. No limit screws, nothing obvious had moved. So my brain immediately went into the worst possible conclusion. I've bent my frame. Or maybe have I cracked something? I couldn't see anything wrong and the bike was still moving. So there wasn't really much else to do, apart from to crack on. Crack on, crack on. Once we were actually up there though, the Ridgeway was incredible. And then we got to bomb down the other side, which was brilliant, right up until the point I discovered problem number 2. I basically lost my rear brake completely.
Once we were off the ridgeline, Steve spotted someone working on their car and asked them if we could actually pop in and refill our water bottles. The guy said it was absolutely fine, and when we told him what we were up to, riding from London to Bristol, he kind of thought we were bonkers. But we filled up our water bottles anyway, and we headed off to West Isley, where we were going to meet everybody else at a pub. The pub was called the Harrow, and we stopped there partly for snacks, partly for some nice cool shandies, but also mainly for me to work on my bike and try to get everything working again. It actually ended up being the inner pad or the inner adjustment on the brake caliper that was basically worked its way off. I tightened it on just a little bit more and the brake started working flawlessly again. But I'm definitely blaming the Ridgeway descent. It was super chunky and bumpy and a lot of stuff rattled loose on my bike, and I ended up going around tightening some screws. But everything by the end of that was running how I wanted it to run again. For now, the brakes. The derailleur, not so much.
The others caught us up at the pub and we all headed off together. And from here the day basically became hills. Lots of hills, which would have been fine if my gears weren't getting progressively worse. More and more of the cassette started skipping, which meant every climb became a game of finding which gear would actually stay engaged and then just spinning that gear all the way to the top of the hill. Everyone was amazing and kept waiting for me, but as the day went on, it was becoming more and more frustrating. And in the back of my head, I still had that thought, what if there's actually something wrong with my frame? For the last couple of miles, I ended up on my own. Everyone else had gone ahead and I was creeping along, trying not to make whatever was wrong with my bike any worse. Then I saw the sign for the barge in, and just beyond it, yeah, that, I'd seen the place in photos before, but I don't think I've actually ever seen it in real life. That's a big white horse cut into the hillside. At that point, I knew I'd made it. But then I rolled into camp and everyone had a slightly strange look on their face, and I couldn't work out why. Then I stopped moving.
Full on, isn't it? Oh, yeah. Yeah. couldn't hear that bit. Yeah.
There was an absolutely enormous PA system blasting music across the field. It turned out there was a wedding happening that evening, and we'd also been informed that the after party was going to be in our camping field, starting at midnight. After 2 days of riding, everyone's reaction to the information was slightly different, but there was only one thing we could all agree on. We should probably go to the pub. So that was the first 2 days of the Temple Traverse. We've ridden about 130 miles, crossed London, followed the Thames, ridden over the Ridgeway, broken a few bikes, and somehow ended up camping in a field with a wedding after party. And despite the mechanicals, the hills, probably not eating enough at times, I was absolutely loving it. I think the biggest thing for me was how quickly the trip had stopped being about getting from London to Bristol. It was the places we were seeing along the way, and more importantly, the people I was getting to experience it with. And we were only halfway through. In part 2, we've got canal paths, more questionable bike repairs, considerably more pubs, some very unexpected encounters, and eventually Bristol. And for me, Bristol wasn't going to be the end of the ride. I'll see you in part 2.
If you're new to the channel from this video, hello, welcome. We make lots of different cycling types of content, whether it be visiting bike shops, jumbles, bike builds, cycling events, and all sorts of everything in between. So do feel free to subscribe. It helps me out a bunch, and you can hit that button just over there. And if you can't wait to the next one, that video up there is a particularly good one.